Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Speak Up, the podcast where we help you improve your English naturally, step by step. Whether you're listening while doing chores, commuting, or just relaxing, we're really glad you're here. And a special thank you to all our regular listeners. We see your support, and it truly means the world to us. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It helps us grow this podcast and reach more English learners just like you. And when we grow together. So be a part of this journey from today. Now, let me ask you something. What if I told you you could improve your English fluency without speaking a single word? At least not at first. Sounds unbelievable, right? But today we're going to talk about a method that's changing the way many people learn English, and it might just change your journey too.
Yes, you heard that right. Today's topic is all about the input method, a simple but powerful way to learn English faster without jumping straight into speaking. This method is actually backed by how we naturally acquire language, but it's also one of the most misunderstood approaches. Many learners spend hours repeating words, memorizing grammar, and forcing themselves to talk before they're ready. But guess what? That pressure usually causes more frustration than progress. There's a better way, a calmer, smarter way, and we'll guide you through it step by step. But be warned, there's one thing people always get wrong with the input method, and it stops them from improving. We'll reveal that mistake later in the episode, so don't go anywhere.
Exactly. We know that so many learners feel stuck. They try everything. Apps, textbooks, speaking classes, and still struggle to speak confidently. But what if the problem isn't you? What if the method you've been using is the real problem? Today, we're going to explain why the input method works better for most learners, especially if you're shy, unsure, or tired of speaking practice that goes nowhere. We'll also tell you how to make input your daily habit, whether you have 10 minutes or a full hour to study. And the best part? You can do it quietly, without pressure, and still see real results. But again, the input method only works if you use it the right way. So make sure you don't miss the next part. We're about to explain something most learners never realize.
You know, Ryan, I wish someone had told me about this method when I first started learning languages. Because once you really understand how it works, you stop blaming yourself and you start seeing results faster. And that's what we want for all our listeners. Whether you're a student, a professional, or someone just trying to speak English better, this method can help. So stay tuned because we're just getting started. In the next segment, we'll explain exactly what the input method is, how it works, and how you can start using it today, even if your English is at a beginner level. Trust us, this one step can completely change your approach.
All right, first, let's understand what exactly is the input method. Imagine learning English by just listening and reading, instead of forcing yourself to speak from day one. That's what the input method is all about. It's based on the idea that your brain learns language best when it first receives a lot of understandable English, like hearing it in podcasts, watching it in videos, or reading simple English stories. You don't need to produce anything yet. You're just feeding your brain the language in its natural form. And the beautiful part is, your brain starts to connect the patterns, the rhythm, and the meaning without you even realizing it.
Exactly, Ryan. And you know what? It's actually the way all of us learned our first language. When we were babies, we didn't talk right away. We just listened. Every single day, we heard words, sentences, tones, and slowly, we began to understand. And only after that, we started to speak. That's the input method in action. It's natural, it's low pressure, and it's surprisingly effective, especially if you've been feeling nervous about speaking. Instead of worrying about grammar or pronunciation right away, you simply let the language flow into your ears and eyes. It's like giving your brain the fuel it needs before you ask it to drive.
That's such a powerful way to put it. Fuel before the drive. See, the traditional way of learning English is very different. We're often told, speak more, practice every day, talk even if you make mistakes. And while that sounds good, it can actually be really frustrating. Why? Because if your brain hasn't absorbed enough language input yet, you won't have the words. You'll feel stuck. You'll pause. You'll forget simple things. And then you might feel like you're failing. But you're not failing. You just haven't fed your brain enough English yet. The input method is like filling your tank first, so when you're ready to speak, you actually can.
Yes, and that feeling of being stuck, it's so common. So many learners think, why can I understand English but I can't speak it? And the answer is usually, you just need more input. The more you hear real, natural English, the more familiar it becomes. Your brain starts to notice the way people speak. It picks up sentence structure, vocabulary, pronunciation, without needing to study each piece separately. It's not about memorizing rules. It's about experiencing the language. And the best part is, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be consistent. But input method doesn't expect you to perform. It only asks you to absorb.
And once you start using the input method, something amazing happens. You begin to feel the language. You don't just translate it word for word, you start understanding phrases as whole ideas. You begin to sense what sounds right and what doesn't. And that's where real fluency begins, not with memorized answers, but with deep understanding. It's like music. The more you listen, the more natural it becomes to follow the rhythm. That's how English starts to flow inside you with repeated, meaningful input.
Honestly, Ryan, it's such a relief for learners to hear this because for so long, they've been told that if they're not speaking, they're not learning. But the truth is, you are learning, even in silence, even when you're just listening, even when you're reading subtitles or simple English text. That's where the magic is happening. And if you trust the process, the words will come. The confidence will come, the fluency will come. The input method is not about speed. It's about building a strong foundation. And that foundation starts by letting English come to you, not chasing it with pressure.
Next, let's talk about something that almost no one talks about in English learning, and that is the silent period. This is a natural stage where your brain is soaking in the language quietly. You're not speaking much yet, but you're learning a lot. And here's the thing, this silent period is actually necessary, but most learners don't understand it. They feel guilty for not speaking, or they think they're doing something wrong. But think about it. When a child is learning their first language, they usually don't speak for a year or more. But that doesn't mean they're not learning. They're listening, watching, and understanding silently.
Exactly, Ryan. And it's such a powerful reminder that silence doesn't mean failure. In fact, it often means growth. But many English learners try to skip this stage. They feel pressure from teachers, from classes, from themselves, and they try to speak before their brain is ready. And what happens then? They freeze. They forget words. They feel frustrated. And sadly, some even give up because they think, I'm just not good at English. But that's not true. The real problem is that they never gave their brain enough time to absorb the language. They skipped the input, they skipped the listening, and without that foundation, speaking feels like climbing a mountain with no training.
And you know what's even more painful? When learners force themselves to speak too early, they usually start creating bad habits. They build sentences using their native language structure. They get stuck in translation, and they become more focused on sounding right than actually understanding what they're saying. It becomes mechanical, not natural. And deep down, they feel the difference. They know it doesn't feel fluent. But again, it's not their fault. It's the system that told them to speak first before they ever had time to listen enough.
Yes, and this is why input is so important. It gives you the right patterns, the right rhythm, and the right feeling of English before you try to produce it. You don't have to guess how a sentence should sound. You already know because you heard it before. Your brain starts to copy real English, not textbook English. But if you skip the input, your brain has nothing to copy. And that's where most learners fall. They try to speak without ever building a clear map in their mind. And speaking without input is like trying to write music without ever hearing a song.
Honestly, if you're listening to this and thinking, that's exactly what happened to me, you're not alone. So many people go through this. They study hard, they memorize, they try to speak, and yet it still doesn't feel right. That's because fluency doesn't come from pressure, it comes from understanding. And understanding comes from input. So if you've been feeling stuck, maybe you don't need more speaking practice, maybe you just need more listening, more reading, more input that fills your mind with real English before you open your mouth.
That's such an important message because when you finally accept the silent period as a natural part of your journey, everything changes. You stop rushing, you stop blaming yourself, you begin to trust that your brain will speak when it's ready. But first, it needs time, it needs exposure, and most of all, it needs input. So don't be afraid of silence. Don't feel guilty if you're not speaking yet. Instead, focus on giving your brain what it needs, a daily dose of real, meaningful English. And in just a moment, we'll show you exactly how much input you need to finally start speaking with confidence. So keep listening.
All right, let's dive deep into how your brain really learns a language. Picture your brain as a sponge. At first, it's dry, waiting to absorb anything. When you listen to English or read it, your brain starts to soak it in. It picks up patterns, sounds, and how words fit together, even before you consciously understand every detail. You don't need to worry about memorizing rules or getting every word right at first. Instead, each moment you spend listening or reading is like slowly filling your brain with the natural rhythm and flow of the language. It's a quiet process that happens gradually, building a solid foundation without any pressure to speak right away.
That's right, Ryan. Think back to how you learned your very first language as a child. No one explained grammar or pronunciation. It was all about exposure. You simply listened and watched. This is what we call comprehension before production. Your brain first understands by processing the sounds, intonation, and structure of the language around you. It listens, observes, and starts to make sense of the words in context. Even if you don't speak in complete sentences yet, your brain is busy internalizing the language. It's absorbing every nuance, creating pathways that will later make speaking feel natural and effortless.
Exactly. Every time you listen to natural English, whether it's through a podcast, a TV show, or a conversation, your brain is at work. It's connecting dots, recognizing familiar sounds, and understanding how words mix together in everyday speech. This isn't a stressful process. It's organic. Your mind doesn't need to focus on the mechanics of the language right away. It's more about letting the language become a part of you. The simple act of listening repeatedly builds these internal connections. Over time, these connections become so strong that you start to feel the language inside, even if you haven't formed the words out loud.
And here's the magic of it all. While you might be sitting quietly, just listening or reading, your brain is actively processing English in the background. It starts to recognize recurring patterns and familiar phrases almost automatically. This isn't just passive learning, it's an active, natural process that sets the stage for later fluency. The more consistent your exposure, the stronger those neural pathways become. You begin to internalize correct sentence structures and natural phrasing without even realizing it. It's a gentle, persistent buildup that supports everything you'll eventually say.
So, in simple terms, the brain is designed to learn language by absorbing it first. It's like gardening, planting seeds without expecting a full bloom overnight.
Every moment you spend engaging with real English is like watering those seeds. Over time, they sprout into a deep, intuitive understanding of the language. This process happens naturally when you immerse yourself in authentic, everyday English. The more you listen and read, the more your brain prepares itself for producing the language. And where the time comes to speak, it will do so from a place of solid understanding and confidence.
This natural approach to learning is truly empowering. It reassures you that it's perfectly okay to start by listening, rather than worrying about speaking perfectly from the start. Your brain is remarkably adept at picking up what it needs when given enough quality input over time. You can rest easy knowing that every moment of exposure builds your foundation for fluent, confident communication. By embracing this method, you allow your mind the space and time it needs to grow, setting you up for success when you eventually start speaking. It's all about trusting your brain's natural ability to learn.
Now, so far, we've understood how the brain learns a language and how important it is to give your brain time to absorb English through listening and reading. But the next big question is, what kind of input actually works best? Not everything you hear or read will help you. You need input that's clear, understandable, and consistent. One of the most powerful ways to do this is through listening to podcasts, YouTube videos, English interviews, or any content that feels natural and interesting to you. When you listen every day, your brain starts to notice the real sound of English, how words are connected, how emotions are expressed, how people naturally pause and speak. It's input that feels alive, and that's what makes it effective.
Absolutely, Ryan. And along with listening, reading is also a strong form of input if you choose the right material. Don't force yourself to read hard novels or complicated news articles. Instead, start with something made for learners, like graded readers. These are books written in simple English at different levels so you can build your confidence step by step. And here's a great tip. When you watch English videos or movies, keep the subtitles in English, not your native language. This helps your brain connect the words you hear with the words you see. That connection makes it easier to understand meaning and remember new vocabulary naturally without needing a dictionary every few minutes.
Now, let's talk about something really important. Active input versus passive input. These are two ways your brain receives language, and both are useful. Active input is when you're fully focused. For example, if you're listening to a podcast with your headphones on, taking notes, repeating phrases, or pausing to understand something, that's active learning. You're engaged, present, and giving your full attention to the language. This kind of input helps your brain notice details like grammar patterns, word combinations, and pronunciation. It's deep learning. Even 15 to 20 minutes of this kind of focused practice every day can move your English forward faster than hours of unfocused study.
Now, on the other hand, we have passive input. This means you're hearing or seeing English while doing something else, like walking, cooking, or cleaning. You might not be giving it full attention, but your brain is still working quietly in the background. Maybe you're listening to an English podcast while commuting or letting an English video play in the background. It doesn't feel like study, but over time, it makes a real difference. Your ears get used to the sounds of English. Your brain starts to recognize common phrases and sentence rhythms. Passive input may be quiet, but it still leaves a strong effect, especially when it's combined with active practice.
The truth is, the best results come when you use both types of input together. You don't have to choose just one. For example, you could start your day with 10 minutes of focused listening, that's active. Then later, while making dinner, you could play the same content again as passive input. This repetition is powerful. It helps your brain remember and understand better. You'll start to notice that things sound more familiar the second time. Slowly, your brain begins to treat those words and phrases as normal, comfortable English, and that's exactly what you want. It's not about forcing yourself to memorize. It's about letting the language settle in naturally.
And remember, enjoyment matters. Choose input that you like. If you enjoy stories, listen to story-based podcasts. If you love learning about health, find simple English videos on that topic. If you're into music, read the lyrics while listening to your favorite English songs. The important thing is that your brain stays interested and relaxed. When you're emotionally connected to the input, your brain holds on to it longer. So don't worry about sounding perfect or understanding everything right away. The more consistent your input is and the more you enjoy it, the more confident and fluent you'll become over time.
So by now we know that input is essential, but there's still one important question. How do you choose the right input? Because let's be honest, the internet is full of English content. Some of it helps and some just overwhelms you. That's why we always recommend using what we call the 3 filters. These are simple but very powerful. The first filter is understandable. This means the content should be mostly clear to you. If it's too difficult, your brain will get tired and frustrated. If it's too easy, you won't grow. You want to understand around 70 to 90%, enough to follow the meaning but still have some challenge. That balance is where real learning happens.
Absolutely. The second filter is just as important. It has to be interesting. You need to actually enjoy what you're listening to or reading. If the content is boring, you'll stop. And when you stop, you break your progress. But if it's something that makes you smile or makes you curious or helps you learn about a topic that you care about, your brain stays active. You remember more. You stay motivated, and you don't feel like you're studying. You feel like you're exploring. Whether it's English podcasts about travel, videos on food, or books with simple love stories, choose what makes you feel excited to come back.
And the third filter is consistency. This one is so simple, but most learners forget it. If you only get input once or twice a week, your brain doesn't get enough exposure. You don't build strong connections. But when you get English input every single day, even just 15 to 20 minutes, your progress multiplies. The brain works best with repeated contact. It's just like watering a plant. You can't pour a bucket once a week and expect it to grow. You need a little water every day. Language is no different. It needs regular care. Daily exposure helps English feel normal, familiar, and comfortable.
When you use these 3 filters together, understandable, interesting, and consistent, your input becomes powerful. It becomes something that doesn't just teach you words, but makes you feel connected to the language. And that emotional connection is important. If you enjoy the input, you'll naturally come back to it. If you understand most of it, you'll feel successful. And if you do it daily, you'll see progress faster than you expect. These filters are not rules, they're your guide. They help you stay on track and avoid wasting time on content that doesn't match your level or your interests.
And one more thing, don't think you need to find perfect material. Just find something that checks all 3 boxes enough. Maybe a podcast that's simple and fun. Maybe a YouTube channel with easy subtitles and a friendly speaker. Maybe a short storybook that feels relaxing. It doesn't have to be advanced or academic. It just needs to fit you. Don't choose something just because it's popular or for learners. Choose what makes you feel calm, focused, and curious. That's the kind of input your brain loves the most.
And as you continue, your taste and level will grow. Something that feels challenging now might feel easy next month, and that's a beautiful sign of growth. So keep using the 3 filters to guide your journey. Keep asking yourself, is this understandable? Do I enjoy this? Can I make this part of my daily routine? If the answer is yes, then you found the right input. Learning English doesn't have to feel heavy or stressful. With the right input, it can actually feel light, exciting, and deeply rewarding, day by day.
So now that we understand the power of input and how to choose it, let's break it down into something you can actually use. A simple daily routine. You don't need fancy tools. You don't need a complicated plan. All you need is time and just 1 hour a day. Start with this. 30 minutes of listening. That's it. Find an English podcast or video that's at your level, something you understand most of, but not all. Put on your headphones, focus, and really listen.
Try to notice how the speaker talks, how they ask questions, how sentences are formed. This is where your brain starts to absorb real, natural English.
Yes, listening is the first and most powerful step. And it's even better when you listen to the same thing more than once. Maybe in the morning, you listen with full attention, and later in the day, you play it again while doing something else. That repetition helps your brain connect meaning and sound much faster. Don't worry if you don't understand every single word. You don't need to. Just try to get the overall meaning and enjoy the process. Let your brain become familiar with the sounds and rhythm of English. Listening should feel like a quiet conversation with your mind. It's not a test.
After you've done your listening for the day, move to the second part, 30 minutes of reading. This could be a simple English storybook, a blog, a short article, or even subtitles from a video you watched earlier. Reading right after listening is really powerful because your brain has already heard the language. It's warmed up. Now, when you see those same words or phrases written down, the connection becomes stronger. Reading helps you recognize spelling, word order, and grammar, but without needing to study boring grammar rules. Your brain learns naturally, in full sentences, not in pieces.
And just like listening, reading should be in context. Don't just study random words from a vocabulary list. Instead, let the words live inside real sentences. That's how you truly understand them. For example, reading a short story helps you see how words are used, not just what they mean. You'll start to recognize patterns like used to, going to, would like, and these will slowly become part of your own speaking. The more you see them in real use, the more automatic they become. Language lives in context, and reading gives you that rich, full experience your brain needs.
So here's the full plan again. 30 minutes of focused listening and 30 minutes of simple reading every day. If that feels like too much at first, start with just 15 minutes of each. What matters most is that you're consistent. Make it part of your routine, like brushing your teeth or making tea. And remember to listen first, then read. That order helps your brain receive the language naturally, just like a child learns. You're not forcing yourself to speak yet. You're preparing. You're building the foundation. Every minute you spend on this input is an investment in your future fluency.
And the most beautiful thing, this method is peaceful. You're not under pressure to talk before you're ready. You're not worried about mistakes. You're simply listening, reading, repeating, and letting your brain grow in its own time. That's how true fluency begins, not with pressure, but with calm and steady progress. So if you've been feeling lost or frustrated in your English journey, try this. Just 1 hour a day. Listen first, read after. Choose content you enjoy, and repeat it often. Bit by bit, the words will stop feeling foreign and start feeling like part of you.
So here's the full plan again. 30 minutes of focused listening and 30 minutes of simple reading every day. If that feels like too much at first, start with just 15 minutes of each. What matters most is that you're consistent. Make it part of your routine, like brushing your teeth or making tea. And remember to listen first, then read. That order helps your brain receive the language naturally, just like a child learns. You're not forcing yourself to speak yet. You're preparing. You're building the foundation. Every minute you spend on this input is an investment in your future fluency.
And the most beautiful thing, this method is peaceful. You're not under pressure to talk before you're ready. You're not worried about mistakes. You're simply listening, reading, repeating, and letting your brain grow in its own time. That's how true fluency begins. Not with pressure, but with calm and steady progress. So if you've been feeling lost or frustrated in your English journey, try this. Just 1 hour a day. Listen first, read after, choose content you enjoy, and repeat it often. Bit by bit, the words will stop feeling foreign and start feeling like part of you.
Finally, let's talk about something that almost every learner asks. When should I start speaking English? The truth is, you don't need to rush. If you've been listening and reading every day, your brain is already learning. Over time, you'll feel a natural shift. Words will begin to come to your mind more easily. Sentences will start forming without effort.
That's when you know you're ready to speak. Not because someone said it's time, but because your brain is asking to express itself. That's the beauty of the input method. It leads you to speaking naturally, not forcefully.
Exactly. Forcing yourself to speak too early can actually make you feel more nervous and unsure. You might pause too much, forget simple words, or feel like you're failing. But it's not your fault. It just means your brain needs more input, more listening, more reading before it can produce the language smoothly. Speaking should feel invited, not pressured. And here's something important. Don't try to memorize full phrases or dialogues just to sound fluent. Memorizing might help you once or twice, but it doesn't build real confidence. It's like copying a dance without feeling the music. It won't last.
Yes, and real fluency doesn't come from memorization. It comes from understanding. When you've heard something many times and seen it in real context, it becomes a part of you. So when you finally start speaking, it doesn't feel like guessing or acting. It feels real, natural, smooth. That's the difference between learning for performance and learning for connection. So give yourself permission to stay silent a little longer if needed. That silence is not empty, it's powerful. It means your brain is preparing, and when it's ready, speaking will come, not like a script, but like a voice.
And when you do begin speaking, start small. You don't need to give long speeches or talk for hours. Start with a few sentences. Talk to yourself in the mirror. Describe what you're doing in English while cooking or cleaning. Speak slowly. Don't worry about mistakes. The key is to let your mouth get used to the language without fear. You've already done the hard work by listening and reading. Now it's just about letting it out. The words are there. They just need space and time to rise to the surface.
Also, don't fall into the trap of comparing yourself with others. Everyone's brain works differently. Some people speak early, others take more time. That doesn't mean one is better, it just means we all grow in our own way. Trust your process. Trust your input. When the time is right, your voice will come through, and it will be real. You won't be translating in your head. You'll be thinking in English because you've given your brain everything it needed patiently and consistently.
So if you're wondering when to start speaking, remember this. Speak when it feels natural, not when it feels forced. Focus on building a strong, deep understanding first. Keep listening, keep reading, keep feeding your brain the language it needs. And when your brain is ready, the words will come. You won't need to push. You'll simply respond. Speaking won't feel scary. It'll feel like a natural part of you. That's the magic of input. It prepares you quietly for the moment your voice is ready to rise.
Here is a bonus tip for our learners who might be wondering, how do I know if the input method is really working? Well, the signs are quiet but powerful. One day you'll hear a phrase and understand it instantly, without translating. Or you'll catch yourself thinking in English without even trying. You'll start to feel more comfortable around the language, even if you're not speaking yet. These small shifts are proof that your brain is working in the background. It's like a seed that's growing underground. You can't always see the roots, but they're forming, getting stronger every day.
Exactly. Another beautiful sign is when you begin to notice patterns naturally. You'll hear a sentence like, "I've been waiting for hours," and feel like, yes, that sounds right. Even if you've never studied that structure in a textbook, that's real progress. That's the power of meaningful input. You'll also find that your confidence grows slowly, gently, without pressure. You'll enjoy listening more. You'll feel connected to the language. And when you finally speak, it won't feel forced. It'll feel natural, almost automatic. That's when you'll know, yes, it's working.
So, if you've been following the steps, listening, reading, choosing content that feels right for you, and doing it daily, trust the process. Don't chase results, just stay consistent. The input method doesn't give you fast results overnight, but it gives you deep, lasting fluency that doesn't disappear under pressure. Every minute you invest is adding to your inner fluency bank. You're not wasting time,
You're building something solid.
And with that, we just want to say thank you for joining us today. We hope this episode helped you see English learning in a new, refreshing way. If you're new here, please consider subscribing to Speak Up so we can continue growing and learning together. And to our regular listeners, thank you for your support. Keep listening, keep reading, and most importantly,
Keep trusting yourself. You're doing better than you think. We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, take care and keep speaking up.